day's a day, a bad luck's always a coming my way.
For today's grim adventure, we are running around London like a madman, which, believe it or not, is quite fitting because today's topic is all on the final resting place, the grave of Jack the Ripper. Now wait just one moment. Why on earth are we sitting in the middle of a cemetery with no shade on an abnormally sunny day in London? Something about this just does not fit right, does not feel right. Well, we are here because it is believed that the grave of Jack the Ripper is in this cemetery. To be more specific, the grave of a man by the name of Aaron Kosminski, who was one of the 3 main suspects believed to be Jack the Ripper back when the killings happened. Now, I said Aaron Kosminski, but it should be known, I don't know if you know this or not, the investigators only said Kosminski. They never said Aaron. So nobody really knows if Aaron Kosminski is or was Jack the Ripper. And that brings us to the bloody shawl. Now, if you've been following any kind of Ripper news at all, then some of this story might sound familiar. You see, Catherine Eddowes, when her body was found, there was a bloody shawl found near her body. And instead of submitting it to evidence, but back then I think they burned it. Instead of submitting it to evidence or burning it, the investigator took it because he thought the fabric, the pattern was beautiful, and he wanted his wife to make something out of it. That never happened. Also, something that never happened, this shawl was never washed. Fast forward many years ago, forgotten by the police, forgotten by everyone, a man buys the bloody shawl. I think it was like 2007 or something like that. And believing it to have blood on it, he gets a test for like DNA, and they find blood and they find semen. And they were able to, through DNA testing, bring up the name Aaron Kosminski. There was a match. And there was another match of DNA on this bloody shawl for Catherine Eddowes. So immediately, right then and there, through DNA testing, Aaron Kosminski became named as Jack the Ripper. And it's very controversial. Now, I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that I am an expert in DNA sciences or testing or anything like that, but I always thought that when something was proven through DNA testing, that it was pretty concrete, that you really couldn't do anything about it. Apparently not, because supposedly the type of DNA testing that they were able to do really wasn't enough. It wasn't to kind of pinpoint exactly. It was just kind of getting you in the right area. It just so happens that the right area was both Catherine Eddowes and Aaron Kosminski, funny enough. You know what, baby girl? Even with DNA testing, I don't know if we're ever going to know for sure who Jack the Ripper was. And quite honestly, I don't know if I do want to know. I kind of like the mystery of it, right? Now, let's say for right now, it is Aaron Kosminski. The murders happened in 1888, and Kosminski himself died in 1919. And his final resting place is down this path near the back wall of this cemetery. It looks like there are some houses back there, and you know what? I wouldn't mind living next to the final resting place, the grave of Jack the Ripper. Now, what we do know about Aaron Kosminski is this. He was an immigrant living in London at the time. He was a barber. And he kind of got in trouble with the law a few different times. And every time you read one of these police accounts, it doesn't really make sense. He was violent. No, he wasn't violent. He was sound of mind. He was not sound of mind. I will say this. He did become institutionalized in an asylum because he was having these very lucid hallucinations, I think like schizophrenia. He ended up dying in the asylum in 1919, March of 1919. Was it him? I don't know. But he's buried right down here. So it looks like the final resting place of Aaron Kosminski, the grave of Jack the Ripper, is in section G, row 14, grave number 12. And thank goodness for that information, because this cemetery is so massive. I think we would have been lost. You see what I mean? It's easy to get lost in this sea, this like sun-drenched sea of tombstones. But Aaron Kosminski's final resting place is right there. He died at the age of 53, March 27th, 1919. We're going to talk a little bit more about it. We're going to visit some locations, but he died in an asylum, like in a hospital. And this is his final resting spot. Now here's a different angle of Aaron Kosminski's grave. And we're going to walk over there in just a moment. I just want to point out a few different things. Obviously, there's a lot of very, very, very old tombstones here. He died in 1919. But in preparation for coming out here, we saw some pictures of like a nameplate right on the stone that's right there in the middle of all those pebbles that had his name on it and the date of death, March 27, 1919. And it looks like somebody stole it. I mean, I'm not surprised that somebody would want to come out here and you know, steal Jack the Ripper's nameplate, his tombstone, if you will, but still it's very sad no matter who he is. Here's a shot looking straight down to where the modern nameplate would have been. You can see that it was attached to it by glue or something, but it is long gone. Right? We have no idea when Kosminski's nameplate was stolen, but I'm guessing it's relatively recent because Ripper and Kosminski have been in the news a lot lately with the whole DNA evidence thing. But I want to point this out. So that's his grave right there. And right here, like a stone's throw away from his final resting place where his nameplate was stolen, is cutlery, bent to all heckins and back. It's kind of fitting if you think about it. Jack the Ripper, who slit the throat and gutted his victims, his final resting place has been desecrated by a butter knife. Even though his modern nameplate has been stolen, you can still read his name on the tombstone. A lot harder now since 1919, but right here, you can still make out the last few letters in the word Aaron and then Kosminski. So this is the right spot. Pretty wild. They talk about history, the grave of Jack the Ripper. Let's get a little closer look at it. So right there, and quite honestly, just walking through the cemetery, if you did not know that this was him, you wouldn't be able to read it. There are some of you who are watching this video right now who I guarantee is saying, there's no way in heckins that this is the grave of Jack the Ripper, the final resting place of suspect Aaron Kosminski. And you know what? You just might be right. The DNA evidence is very controversial, and you know, we may never know. But it is the shawl, the bloody shawl that was found near the body of Catherine Eddowes that brought us here, that named Kosminski. Well, put the name back in the minds of the world.
It's an age-old mystery that has gripped the world for more than a century. Jack the Ripper, the mysterious serial killer whose identity has long remained a mystery.
That is.
Until now.
Yeah, DNA from a shawl recovered at the scene of one of his crimes has incredibly found a 100% match. Well, for more, we are joined by the historian who made the bombshell discovery, Russell Edwards in London. Russell, good evening to you. Tell us about the match. Who is this person behind the infamous name?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. So the name of the murderer, which has always been known, the name is Aaron Kosminski.
Oh.
He was a Polish immigrant Jew that came over to Whitechapel in 1881 with his brother. And he was 23 at the age of the murders.
Okay, let's talk about...
The picture is showing that he's 16. That's when he came over.
Okay, what else do we know about that fella?
Okay, so he was suffering with schizophrenia. That we know. We know when he was admitted into the asylum, Colney Hatch, that his occupation was hairdresser or barber surgeon. So in those days, you had anatomical knowledge, which when you know the case, you know that the murderer must have had anatomical knowledge to commit the crimes that he did. Now, in 1891, there was a document called the McNaughton Memorandum, and in there, it actually says that Kosminski had strong homicidal tendencies, that he was a strong suspect, and he was prone to solitary vices and auditory hallucinations, which all point to schizophrenia.
Oh, that's very creepy. Tell me, how did you come about finding this shawl?
Okay, so it was in March 2007. So now we're looking at 18 years ago. It was my mum that called me because it was all over the press that there was a shawl for sale that was purported to be taken from the fourth murder scene, that of Catherine Eddowes. And that's how I was introduced to the shawl.
So we get to the next cemetery and I turn around and Jessica is nowhere to be found. And then I realized there is a ton of tall grass. And if you don't know this about her, she loves playing gopher. Go ahead, show everybody what you've been doing. Please just be careful. Now, if you don't know this cemetery here, this is where you'll find two of Jack the Ripper's victims, Catherine Eddowes and Marianne Nichols. Also, this is where you'll find the final resting place, the grave of the Elephant Man. Playing in the high weeds is a lot of fun, don't get us wrong. But where we are going is across the road here to a very well manicured section. I mean, it's a full-fledged cemetery, but there's a massive area over here for people who've been cremated. You know what? It's really nice to have some cloud coverage. The other cemetery, Baby Goal, it was getting a little too much with the sun beating down on us. Now, right over here is the final resting place of Joseph Merrick, otherwise known as the Elephant Man. And I promise at some point we're going to come back and do a video on his life and his grave and talk about his story. Promise, I promise, I promise. I know some of people have reached out and asked us to do it, but we are here for the victims of Jack the Ripper. And with that, so you see Joseph Merrick there, then over here on the right-hand side, there's that hedge. Both Catherine Eddowes and Marianne Nichols are over there to the right. But before we walk over there, the City of London Cemetery, Joseph Carey Merrick, 1862 to 1890, the Heritage Trail. It's nice that they do this. And there it is. Jessica is stopping to smell every flower we pass. We're gonna be here all day, you know that, right? I really love that the memorial gardens here really are just rose gardens. Talk about a beautiful final resting place, right? And even though every flower is not in bloom, you can see what it would be like. You can use your imagination. Now, right here, in bed number 1849, right at the start of it, right next to the road, is the marker for Catherine Eddowes. Let me go ahead and put the camera down this way. It says, City of London Cemetery. Catherine Eddowes died 30th of September, 1888. This is the Heritage Trail. This isn't the first Jack the Ripper video we've done. In the past, we did a pretty extensive deep dive into the crimes of Jack the Ripper and how the places, like the locations, look now compared to when they did back in 1888. And at the end of it, at the end of the video, we showed the final resting place of the last victim, Mary Kelly. And we wanted to come out here and show this, where Catherine Eddowes is buried. Well, her final resting place. But we knew that we wanted to come out here and do a video on Erin Kosminski, because it's because of her shawl. The shawl that was found near her at the crime scene that had blood and semen on it, that was DNA tested, that named Erin Kosminski, which brings us today. So without even realizing, I mean, how could she? It was a brutal, brutal crime. Something she owned could very well have solved the Jack the Ripper murder case. Blows my mind. So basically, directly across the street is where you'll find the final resting place of Mary Ann Nichols. And look at these roses. The rose gardens are a little smaller, like the rose beds, but they have this nice little bench so you can kind of sit and watch them. And then right here, right next to the road, another Heritage Square marker. It says the City of London Cemetery. Mary Ann Nichols died 31st of August, 1888. Heritage Trail. I will say this, visiting the actual crime scenes with photos to see how it looks today, how much it has changed or how much it has remained the same is one thing. But visiting the final resting place of the victims, knowing what they went through, it's something else. We now find ourselves in the town of Leavesden, which is where the old Leavesden Hospital was, the place where Erin Kosminski died in 1919. And at the end of this pathway is where we'll find the old hospital cemetery, and it's a nice little walk through the woods which we couldn't pass up, so we decided to walk back here first and talk about the old hospital before we get up there, because now it's private residences. So this is East Lane, and at the end of this road on the right-hand side is East Lane Cemetery. But the original cemetery to the hospital is actually right over here to the left. It's on private property, and you really can't get back there. But you can see that a lot of people have. They climb this little embankment down into the field, and then from what I've seen, from what I can tell, there are no grave markers, at least none that I can really see. There might be something. But it's pretty overgrown. So you might be asking yourself, wait a second, why are you going to this cemetery out in the middle of nowhere when Aaron Kosminski isn't even buried there. Well, we just love cemeteries, especially old hospital cemeteries. And besides, we say this all the time, we love the videos that we do and the different adventures that we go on, but it's really all about the journey getting there. You know what? I know this is not the original cemetery to the hospital, but my word, is this beautiful. I feel like more cemeteries should have like a walk-through entrance like this. Well, in the States they should have them. Here in England, they're everywhere. As soon as you walk through the cemetery gate, on the right-hand side, right next to the path, is a marker that talks about the hospital. So we cleaned it off as best as we possibly could, and it's still a little hard to read because of the moss growing in the letters. But it looks like it says, "Remember before God those whose ashes are buried here and whose names are recorded in a book of remembrance in the chapel of Leavesden Hospital." Beautiful. I can't be certain about this, but it looks like the original cemetery was in use all the way up to 1905. So Aaron Kosminski could have very well have been buried here, but we know that his final resting place is down in London. So there's a lot of high weeds in here. You can see some of the stone markers poking their heads up. A lot of them are flat. Some of them are hidden pretty well. Look at this one right here. I'm gonna lift the camera up and look down inside the weeds. See what it says. There we go. In loving memory of Tom Dawson. Died 23rd of October 1957. 61 years old. So let's talk a little bit more about Aaron Kosminski and who he was. We already know that he was one of the three main suspects in the Ripper killings. We know that he was living in Whitechapel. We know that he was a hairdresser and he was an immigrant. And we also know that he had some mental health issues, one of them being auditory hallucinations, like he was hearing things. And the other one, I find this very, very strange. He had a problem eating food that was given to him. Does that make sense? So he was seen around Whitechapel eating food out of the gutter and out of people's trash. People said that he was very dirty, that he had a very distinct, disgusting smell about him. And some people say that he wasn't violent, and other people say that he was. What we do know for certain is he spent the last few years of his life in Leavesden Hospital, which is where we are right now. In fact, down this path that I'm walking on is all that's left of the original hospital. That's where we're heading right now. Before we head back to the actual hospital, or what's left of it, we want to show you guys this. The park that's right down the street, there's a sign that says, "Welcome to Leavesden Hive." And this is the way the hospital used to look. It is massive. Can you imagine walking through there? So Aaron Kosminski died in this building somewhere, I have no clue where, 1919. This picture was taken in 1937. And all that's left is this main building right here. Get a little closer to it. So today, that's all that you can really see. It's now apartments. And then the chapel, which is over to the left, that is still there. So we drove by it earlier, and the chapel's under construction. With that being said, this is how the property looks today. You can see that the chapel is fenced off, and behind it they're doing some construction. But a lot of the original building is gone. If we walk over here on the other side of this tree, you're going to see the pathway. Now, it's also important to point out that Aaron Kosminski, pretty much his entire life, he was having mental health issues. And this wasn't the first time that he was admitted to an asylum. This is just where he lived and died. It's crazy that this is still standing and people are living in it. We've noticed that a few different places whenever it comes to old asylums. They turn them into like luxury apartments. They did it in Danvers, just outside of Salem. And they also did it here. Just kind of walking around showing how the property looks. We can't get inside because, again, people do live here. They are private residences now. Wild, right? So let's say that Aaron Kosminski was Jack the Ripper. That would mean that this building right here is where Jack the Ripper's life ultimately ended. It's crazy to think about. And with that being said, thank you for joining us on another grim adventure. This time, once again, dipping our toes into the legend that is Jack the Ripper. Until next time, happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.